identity. And discovering that, as I've found over and over and over, when people ask me, I'll have people of all ages, I've been on interviews, I've had young and old ask me single-handedly, what do you think the biggest issue for people in their 20s is? And they're expecting to hear drugs or sex or alcohol or, all those kind of big hitters. For me, my answer is and will always be identity. In your 20s is the time you really figure out who you are. Hopefully you do figure out in your 20s and it's not later. But this is when the discovery starts, this is when the journey starts, and this is why we make a big deal and talk about it here at ULife. So this series really is about it. Last week we did the hashtag, no filter. That's right, good. I'm glad you guys are paying attention. I was testing. That's what I was doing. And that really was kind of this internal aspect of your identity. Who do you live like when other people aren't watching? Who are you really inside? And this week we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit on arguably one of the more common hashtags, and that's selfie. And I say that to some of you and you get really excited and are picturing your next selfie you're going to take. And for others, you cringe in a deep down place when you hear that word. And it's really crazy to me how that trend has just went crazy. I was actually in San Diego last week, and I was really suffering on Coronado Island in the Marriott Hotel. And I was walking through this garden area in the hotel, and there was this older, gray-haired couple walking by, and they're all cuddly. This is a romantic place, I went there with 20 men, very romantic. But they're walking kind of arm in arm, very cuddly, and I'm just having to be walking by, and they're talking about the view and all that, and the man, of all people, says, "Oh, we'll have to get a selfie later." And it just I lost it. I'm like, did he just say that? Did he just say, I didn't know he knew what a selfie was, let alone would be encouraged to take one. And I'm just amazed how that trend has picked up, because I started really thinking about the trend of photography, and you think about 50 years ago, it was probably fairly uncommon just to have, a camera, right? I mean, people had them, it's not like that old, but to, maybe an upper middle class would have one per household. They're probably a little bit more big and cumbersome. And then you go about 25 years back, so 25 years forward, back, however you want to think about it. And then you're at an age where probably most every home had them. They were film-based, though, if you guys know what that is, film. When you're doing film, you don't take screw-up pictures. You would never take the risk of this picture with film, because you only got 24 shots at it, and it costs money to develop it. So you'd never take that risk right here. And then you fast forward a little bit more up until about 10 years ago even, probably almost everybody owned a nice digital camera. But even then, I do not remember people doing this. I just don't. And it's been really in the last 3-5 years, since everybody has had a camera on their phone, that you started seeing this movement. And then a hashtag to selfie. And it still boggles my mind a little bit what it's all about. Because, if you span backwards, what do you guys think the main reason for a photo is? Think back when cameras started. When people first started taking pictures, what do you think the main reason was that people would take a picture?
Preserve memories.
Memories, right? Document the past. Try to know when you look back what actually happened, right? But it's interesting because photography in a lot of ways has evolved from that. And when I think about just the different ways that I use photography now, when somebody writes something down, actually I was in my office today with Kaylee, wherever she was at, and we wrote something on a whiteboard, and it's we both took a picture of it. That's how we chronicle notes now. We don't actually rewrite them, we just take a picture of what somebody else already wrote, so it's this documenting strategy. I also use it, I like to fix things, I like to kind of explore things, try things out. Most times it's a really utter failure, just ask Nathan. I was working on his car recently. But it's interesting, I found uses for camera when you're working on things, because you take a picture before and you really hope it looks like that afterwards. And if it doesn't, you have a problem. But at least you can take that picture and get instant kind of, is this right or is it wrong? I also seen the trend in photography turn into weird, non-verbal conversations. Do you know what I'm talking about? Snapchat? You never say a word, but you have a long conversation over photos. I don't even know what that is. I'm afraid of Snapchat, actually. But we got that. And then kind of the more recent trend, and it's not a new thing, but it's just a new way of revealing it, is unfortunately self-promotion, or self-measuring, maybe, and I'll explain what that means a little bit. But like I said, it's a new way that film is being used, but it's really not a new issue. As long as there's been humanity, there's been pride and there's been insecurity. And this is what comes out in photography right now. It didn't always, but it is right now. So, you think back to the story of Adam and Eve, and in the beginning, they're chilling in the garden, having a good old time, butt naked, eating all the fruits of the earth. And life was really good, Life was really good. And then they screw up, and what happens instantly? Well, they realize they're naked. I don't know if they didn't look down, or I don't exactly know why all of a sudden it happened, but I have a feeling it has to do with insecurity. Once they entered in the sinful world, all of a sudden they got really insecure about what they looked like and who they were. And they went and hid, and they went and got coverings. And what's the next thing you see happening? God, calls out to Adam. And where's Adam? Some of you may know. He's hiding, right? He's hiding. He's not sure. Again, insecurity. He can't face God. And then God says, what did you do, basically? And Adam, with a genius response, says, it wasn't me, it was the woman that you gave me. Like, that, if that isn't pride, I don't know what is. Not accepting responsibility for what just happened. And so we can see as far back as we can imagine, there's been insecurity and pride. And we see that trend, unfortunately, come out in photography, especially in selfie. We've seen the photos, maybe you've taken the photos where, it's out of insecurity. Or maybe you've taken the photos that it's out of pride. Like, I like to get on big, tall rocks and take a picture of myself. So I look really tough and accomplished. That's what I do. I don't know what you do. But the idea is that we all have that pride and insecurity deep down in us, and it's starting to come out in different ways. So, my goal for you isn't necessarily to knock on you for taking a selfie or to never make you want to take one again, because I don't think that's the issue. I think it's what's underlying, and that's what we're going to talk about. It's not really the fact that you do it, it's what's causing you to do it. And so I also want to disclaim that not all selfies are bad, okay? I'm not saying that. Well, depending on who you talk to. But I'm saying not all selfies are bad. Some people would say all selfies are evil and straight from Satan because they're selfies. But what I'm saying is some selfies I understand are just in good fun. You're preserving memories, just like we talked about. You're just having fun with them, whatever. So I'm not here to be this crazy pastor guy saying everything's the devil. Foosball's the devil, that guy. That's not what I'm here for. But what I want you guys to understand, and really the focus of this talk, as we talked about last week, was kind of around this idea of identity. It's kind of that internal sense of who you are. Today is going to be more that external sense of who you are. It's about who you see yourself as physically. It's that self-image that you see. And what I want you to understand, what we're going to unpack a little bit, is that essentially every person needs to learn that the answer to having this positive self-image isn't some just miraculous feeling okay with yourself. Like, if I just, hard enough, I'll be okay with myself. I'll will it. I'll pray it. Whatever. I'm not knocking prayer, but I'm saying it's not just this switch that necessarily clicks. What it really is it's learning which opinions really matter in your life. That's what it comes down to. We are always going to struggle a bit, just like Adam and Eve who took off running with our physical image. We are. So it's always going to be there, creeping in. It's how much and who you give control to that thought to. So that's what we're going to go after. And kind of that first opinion that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about 4 opinions. And they're going to be good opinions and there's going to be bad opinions. And what you have to determine is, where are these opinions in your life and are you listening to them? And really the first opinion is a stranger's opinion, right? You don't know who they are, but you're going to look real good for them. That's how we think. You have no idea who you're going to run into when you go to the store for 5 minutes to go pick up a gallon of milk, but you sure are going to look good for it, because you just never know which stranger you're going to run into and may or may not think positively about you. This is an opinion that you see come out on media. You know, people look a certain way, they don't even know who for. It's all for strangers, right? This is the one that drives you. Like I said, I was in California last week, and I remember my sister, she used to live there, and Mark, who was singing, that's my brother-in-law, but they're from California. I remember her used to talking about it, and she would say, like, it's so hard to live in California and be okay with yourself. And I just remember thinking, how is that even possible? I'm okay with myself all the time. Look at me, you know? But I'm from Michigan, and you know, I might be all right for Michigan, but I was in California this week, and I swear to goodness, the guy who was giving our sea kayak tour was out of the movie 300. This guy was like this tall, where I'm standing from, right? He was like 300 pounds, cut like just like you wouldn't believe, and he could be waking up from a nap after, you know, eating a whole turkey, and you could see every little ripple on him. I mean, this guy was just huge. And I never felt so insecure in my life. I'm just like, oh, man. And that's the reality, is say it because he would kill me. But I couldn't help but go there. Didn't know him. But for some reason, I felt like I needed to be on par with him, or impress him, or at least in my mind, be close to him. I don't know if anybody can get like him, besides maybe The Rock or something. But this is that thing that happens when you walk around campus. This is the thing that happens when you look at somebody you think is more attractive or better looking, and at the same time they're looking at you and saying the same thing, but you would never say that to each other. And what I want to talk about is those opinions don't matter. They don't matter for a lot of reasons. One, they don't matter because you'll never see them again. They just don't. I talked about it last week. Remember I talked about the old man in the nude beach? That kind of thing. You get older and you realize it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they think about me. But that's one reason, because you'll never meet them, you'll never see them again. But the other reason is because we see throughout Scripture that God never promises an easy way. God never promises that everybody's going to love us. In fact, it's just the opposite. God says this is going to be a tough battle. You're going to come up to opposition all the time. It's not going to be necessarily all, I don't know, I never get my expressions. I try to get my real old expressions out there, like sugar and candy or something. I don't know. It's not going to be all good. It's going to be tough. And so, why are we so surprised when somebody does actually offend us by the way they look at us, or the way they speak about us, or the subtle little comment that's not meant to be mean, but it's meant to be mean, right? Why does it matter? One, I'll never see him again. If I did, I might punch him in the face. And two, because God never promises it to be easy on us. In 1 John 3:1, it says, I think it's on there. I'll try to read it here. All hands here. It says, I see what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and this is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. And I think the heart of that is that question. Why do people treat me like this? Why are they so mean? Well, many of them, not all, but many of them don't have faith. They don't have a relationship with Christ. And so what else would come out of that? Not because they're evil people, because we're unable to do good apart from the Spirit of God. So why are we so surprised when bad things happen to us? Why are we so surprised when people say negative things about us? In, let me go to another one here. Maybe I'll read it off the top there. But in Romans 12:16, it says, "Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited." In that ESV translation, it says, "Don't be haughty." And why do I show this verse? Not to say to these hypothetical people that might be judging us, I say that for our own good. That oftentimes this effort to be accepted physically by people reveals itself or manifests itself in us trying to look better than we are, trying to, be haughty and try to, be perfectly fit or have the right clothes or the right style or whatever, hang with the right people. We want this physical image that would show people that we're something. And God says over and over and over, Jesus is saying this over and over too, and you can see it by the patterns of his life, it's just the opposite. Lower yourself to nothing. You are not better than anybody else. Go mingle with the people that need it the most. Go, you saw Jesus numerous times talking to the prostitutes and the tax collectors and those people that everybody else looked down on. He didn't do that to make himself look better. In fact, it had just the opposite effect. He did that to show who he really was. And ultimately, to show that it didn't matter who you think I am, because I know who I am. This isn't, I guess what I want to say too here. I want to give a little disclaimer. I'm king of disclaimers here. This doesn't mean that God is giving you license to let go of yourself, or whatever that means. This could be physical, this could be mental, this could be financial. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that because God will love you anyway, because he will, you should just have license to go do whatever. Because God talks about how your body is still the temple. When the Holy Spirit came into you, God resides inside of you, and he talks about taking care of that temple. But the motivation is what the difference is. The motivation that God wants for you to treat that temple right will never be those strangers' opinions. It will never be that. It will always be to honor him with your health. It'll be to stay healthy long enough to do the will that he has set out for you. It will be to be a positive example to those who may not know him yet. Those are the reasons why, if anything, you should worry about your self-image or your body. To please God, to glorify God, not to please other people. The other opinion that I want to talk about, like I said, there's 4 more. That's 1. Strangers' opinions. Bad opinion. Bad opinion. Don't trust that opinion. It's no good. The other opinion I'm going to say is friends' opinion. And I gave my best quote fingers. Friends' opinions. These are the people in your life that, if you were describing them, you would still call them friends. Hey, my friend or my buddy or whatever, so-and-so. But these are also the people that you would refer to them that, but it's very much a quotation. These are people that, when they have a chance, will cut you down. When they have a chance, will make you feel worse about yourself than you were supposed to. You should not feel bad about it. If you ever feel bad about yourself, it should only be because you're reading the Bible and you see how amazing God is and how crappy you are in comparison to him. It should never come as a result of who you are compared to another person. And so these are the people in your life that parade as friends, but when it comes down to it, are crap. And they just want to find a reason to make themselves feel better. And it doesn't make, again, I'm not saying these people are evil. These people are uninformed. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it. We see it throughout the Bible in lots of situations. I'm just going to mention three different spots. Joseph, the story of Joseph, I shared about him last year if you were here. Some of you guys may know it. Joseph had lots of brothers. Joseph wasn't the heir by birth to his dad's treasures, but for whatever reason, he was the favorite by his dad. He was the one who was to become the heir, and his brothers loathed him. And so his brothers actually were going to kill them and decided what's better than killing him is selling him and making money off of him. These were his friends. Well, in fact, they were his brothers, but same thing, same idea is that there's family members in our life that might do that to us as well. We see in the story of King David, when he's anointed, we see, or when he's bringing the ark back into Jerusalem, you hear the story, some of you guys know it, he's marching it in, and he's literally just got like a loincloth up, dancing through the streets like a maniac. He's a king. And some people are getting into it, like I know if Eric Torque was there, he'd be dancing with them for sure, he took off. I was setting up for him, but there are people that were getting into it, but there's also people that weren't. In fact, David's wife, the queen, was trying to publicly shame him for doing this. And he was dancing because of his love for God, because of what God was doing in his life. But this was a person that was trying to lift herself up, or lift her family name up above what God wanted, and to demean David in the process in public. We see it again with David in the story. Some of you guys may know it. King Saul, who David, before this event, who David actually took over. King Saul at first liked the idea of David, so everybody liked David. And then King Saul hated David, and then King Saul wanted to kill David. King Saul was trying to savagely come after and attack and kill David because of the insecurities he had. A friend, his best friend's dad, a guy who raised him up. These are those friends, in quotes, that are people that at the surface seem like they're there for you, but when push comes to shove, they don't have your best interest in mind. And those are people that those opinions should never matter. Sometimes you don't know if they're those people until that event comes. But when you figure out that they're those people, it doesn't mean you disassociate, it doesn't mean you're not the friend anymore. It means you should not trust their opinion. Their opinion means nothing. It should not determine how you feel about yourself. These people in our life, sometimes it's very intentional, but honestly it's sometimes very unintentional. I've had people in my life, close friends, I've had people say things to me and I just walk away shaking my head. I have stories where I still can't shake the thing that person said to me. It doesn't mean I hate them for life. I still talk to them. But I realize their opinion of me will never matter anymore. It will never take hold or take weight in any way I view myself. And that's what you gotta realize. Sometimes it's unintentional, sometimes they're not trying to do it. It's just what comes out. And do not trust them. The next opinion I want to talk about is friends' opinion, without the quotes. These are real friends. These are people in your life that you trust deeply, that you go deep with. These are people that, if something was really going wrong, those are the people you would run to. Those are people that you would trust could say to it, and they wouldn't turn on you, or they wouldn't put you down, or they wouldn't attack you, or make you look silly publicly. They can be family members too. I'm kind of clumping that together. Friends, I hope your family is friends to you. But these are people these are good opinions to listen to. But your ability to earn that trust, or their ability to earn that say in your life, doesn't come easy. It just doesn't. You look at Jesus' life. Jesus had his 12 disciples that followed him around for 3 years. Jesus was incredibly encouraging, incredibly compassionate, incredibly supportive, and developed these men in crazy ways in a span of 3 years. Took the church where we're feeling the very effects of it today. Took it around the world through these 12 men. He built them in an intentional way. But what's interesting, he was very gracious and very loving. But you start looking at these instances, he never spared a hard word. He would say really tough things to them. But it was never about their waist, or it was never about their butt, or it was down on people. It was almost always about the person inside of them. It was about who God was in them and what was God doing. It was a rebuke that always had to deal with the relationship with God, not some worldly measurement of who they are. But we have to look at those friends and figure out who those friends are in our life. And if you don't have those friends, I really suggest you find those friends. This is a great place to find those kind of friends. People have found those kind of friends here in the midst of this. But you have to have those kind of friends, because one, they will be the people that are there when you need it most, but they will also be the people that correct you and encourage you when you're making stupid decisions, but they're not doing it to bring you down, and they're not doing it to bring themselves up. They're actually doing it to bring you up. That's the kind of friends, those are the opinions you have to listen to. And those are the kind of people, if they accidentally said a harsh word, would instantly recognize it and apologize for it. They would instantly repent for what they did or said to you. Those are the kind of friends that you need to listen to. The last opinion, but certainly not the least, and the most important actually, is God's opinion. This is the opinion that is the final way. This is the only one that has to matter. And we see in 1 Samuel, I'm going to have, because this thing, in 1 Samuel, it says, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance." This is talking about David when he's anointed. "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as a man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." One of the critiques of David when he selected the youngest son was a little guy. And they're saying, look at this little squirt. Like, he can't do anything, and he's the youngest son. And God's saying, I don't look at the outside. I look at the inside. That's God's opinion of you. He never looks at your body and judges you. He looks at the inside and says, I know exactly who you are. And he knows exactly who you are because, I'm going to read this one here. Because in Jeremiah 1:5 it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you." He was saying that to Jeremiah, but he said that to every one of us. Before we were in the womb, he knew us. He consecrated us the way we were. God made us. That's how he can look at the inward appearance and not the outward appearance, because he made us the way we are. God's opinion is the only one that matters, and that's the one when we're having those down days and we're starting to feel and struggle with our image like I was on that beach in California. That's the opinion I have to go to. I have to go to God's opinion and be like, you know what? It doesn't matter if I look like Hercules, you know? He likes chubby guys too. And I'm doing all right with this life. That's how we have to, that's where we got to go back to. Once we get how determining whose opinions matter, once we get that, and we can listen to the ones that matter and stop listening to the ones that don't matter, when we can do that, then ultimately the battle that Satan's trying to war is becomes very one-sided. He will still come at you. He will still say you're not pretty enough, or thin enough, or attractive enough. But at the end of the day, when you can go back to God's opinion, and then your close friend's opinion, who he works through to communicate to them that encouragement and affirmation, when you can go back to that, all those lies that you're just hearing, you're just like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. It doesn't matter. And that's how you get going on this. So, when we're talking about the phenomena of kind of the selfie, I believe, for the wrong reasons, I'm not saying you can't do selfie anymore, but I believe it will, that tendency, that phenomena will die in your life, and you'll no longer need to measure your approval rating. That's why we do it, right? We want to see how many likes you get, how many comments. You're so pretty. You're so strong, Mitch. Look at you on that rock. So tall. We won't overcompensate for those insecurities or need to prove ourselves to others. But here's the hook, is when you know so clearly who you are, that you'll never need to look at a picture to figure that out. That's what it comes down to. When you get who you really are, you'll never have to look at a picture again. And that's how God made it to be. That's how we have to live. His opinion's the only one that matters, and he speaks, fortunately, to people that encourages us in that same way. And those are the people we need to listen to too. Let me pray. God, thank you for tonight. I thank you for everybody here. I thank you for their desire to follow you, grow with you, learn more about you, and most of all, figure out who they are in relation to you. God, for some crazy reason, you give us all the opportunity to be your sons and daughters, to be your friend. I don't understand why. I don't understand how we could ever be worthy of it, but you do. And I don't understand how, despite how screwed up and messed up we get and we continue to act, you love us the same, and you don't judge us by our mistakes or our physical image. God, I pray for everybody here right now that I know every one of us wages a war in that battle of how we feel about our physical appearance. God, I pray that you would give us the courage and the belief in who you say we are and how you view us. To stop listening to those people in our life that want to cut us down. To stop listening to those people that set a measurement that you never set. God, I pray for everybody here that they would walk away tonight feeling encouraged about how you made them and who you made them to be. God, and I thank you so much for everybody here that they're brave enough to go on that journey, that they're brave enough every day to battle this with you. And God, I just pray that you give them the strength to do it, Lord. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, we're going to have, we're actually going to have Courtney come up, Dave.
Okay, that's fine.
This is a point where we break up in small groups, and Courtney's wherever she went, just clipboard.